Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast. Have you ever heard the phrase, nurses eat their young? Feeding Our Young is more than a podcast, it's a movement. It's a desire to see new nurses of all ages be supported and uplifted by their peers. And it starts with me. It starts with you. So join host Eric Miller, registered nurse of nearly 20 years and adjunct clinical instructor, and today's honored guest, me, Kimberly Wiest. And be ready to have your life uplifted so you can, in turn, uplift others. Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast.
Good morning and welcome to this episode of the Feeding Our Young podcast. It's funny when I say good morning because you might be listening to this in the afternoon or the evening or the middle of the night. But for us here, it's morning, and for some of us a little earlier than others. But today I'm so excited to introduce an amazing woman who has graciously allowed some time here in studio to talk all things her nursing career, all things functional medicine, all things. I'm excited for you to meet this wonderful woman. And to be honest, I'm excited to meet her too, because we do not travel in the same circles other than because of this little podcast. But the reason that why we have her on, it has nothing to do with nursing at all. Nope. The reason why we have her on is because rumor has it that her hometown is the birthplace of Mother's Day, which is ironic to me because I live and was born in and currently live in the birthplace of Father's Day. So therefore, we've got Mother's and Father's Day covered, and I'm very excited to have the one, the only Kimberly Wiest in studio. Kim, how are you this fine morning?
I am doing great. I've already checked some boxes off this morning. I've been to the gym, and I, have wrangled some dogs into submission, and so I'm ready to go.
I wish I could say the same about my children, but I have not. So we only do the best we can there as far as that goes. But I've already kind of let a little bit of the cat out of the bag. So let's just start right off, because I know there's a lot. You and I are going to probably end up talking quite a bit here. So we already know that Kim is going to be a two-part episode here, and we're going to dive right in. So with that, Kim, since I let the cat out of the bag, where is this hometown, the birthplace Mother's Day? Mother's Day? What's home for you, and where do you live?
So currently I live in North Carolina, and I've lived here for 30 years, but I was born in West Virginia, and my hometown is Grafton, West Virginia.
Oh my goodness.
And yes, it is the home of Mother's Day. So I went to Anna Jarvis Elementary School, and Anna Jarvis is the lady who wanted to honor her mother and honor all mothers. And so she actually petitioned the government to make this an official holiday, but it started by just her writing a poem about her mother and giving her mother some flowers and just doing, the general nice things that we like to do for our moms. And as a matter of fact, we have her birthplace, Anna Jarvis's birthplace, is still there. Anna Jarvis Elementary School is still there and thriving. And we actually have a Mother's Day shrine. So it is a church, and my sister got married in that church. So it's a beautiful church.
That is incredible. And I saw that on your what you sent back to me, and I was like, that is just outstanding. And I won't get into the history of it here, but it sounds like it's a similar story on how Father's Day got started. Of course, Mother's Day, I believe, came first, and there was a wonderful woman here who's like, no, you know what I mean? Fathers need their time too. And anyway, petitioned and all the things. And so Spokane is known as the place where Father's Day got started as well. But thank you for that little background. I absolutely love it. So we've kind of already covered, sounds like you're already a nurse, not currently in nursing school. So what degrees have you obtained along your way here, just in a nice brief synopsis?
So I started as an associate's degree nurse, and went, did my thing for a couple of years, and then I went back and got my baccalaureate degree And then I went again, and I actually got a master's degree as a nurse practitioner, and I functioned as a nurse practitioner for about 12 years. And then I went back to school again, and I'm currently a nurse anesthetist. So I got a postgraduate certificate in that. And honestly, when I started my journey, I thought associate's degree, the fastest thing. I have another story about how I even got into the nursing programs quite by accident. But, just stepwise, I just got my degree to get started, and then little by little by little just built onto it, which I love that about nursing, is that not only can you do that with your education, but you can do that with wherever you focus, wherever you work, whether it's med surg or psych or ER or 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 whatever.
Yes, and I actually I never call my honored guests liars, but I don't know that I fully believe you. It must mean you probably started nursing at about the age of 12, because you don't seem old enough to carry all of that education behind you.
Yeah, no, fully 56 here.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And you're. It sounds like you are proud of that fact. I always tell people, like, oh gosh, I'm so old. I'm like, well, what did you expect to happen? We're all getting older, right? Like, we're enjoying life. Wonderful. Well, then, the standard opening questions for you, Kim, and you answer them however you wish. Number one is, what are 3 of your favorite songs in life right now?
So I exclusively listen to Jesus music. So
Okay.
I love these Blood Bought Boots and, Devil Get Behind Me, that song. And then I also...
By who? By who?
Oh, I have no idea.
That's all right. Okay. So if anyone wants to know what they are, you'll see it on the Feeding Our Young Spotify playlist. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
And then I love A Heartfelt Hallelujah.
Awesome.
And then my favorite song is probably a song by Van Morrison called Into the Mystic. And I just love him. I don't know how I ever got turned on to him, but I listen to sort of older kind of traditional singers, like from the 50s and 60s, and I just sort of find a song that I love, and then I go and I listen to everything that they've done. And that's what happened with Van Morrison. So
that's incredible. I cannot wait to kind of dive into that myself and listen to. This is part of it's a vanity project. I just like hearing what people like to listen to, because then I feel like it gives us a glimpse into who you are, and I just think that's fantastic. And the counter to that question also, what 3 words did you use or choose to use to describe nursing school?
I said accidental, calling, and hearts.
Ooh, I love it. I can't wait to discuss that at the end of likely episode 2, y'all. But I already know, I've gotten a brief preview of where she's going with the accidental bit, and we're going to get there, but not just yet. So thank you so much for that, Kim. With that, then, a couple more like getting to know you questions and the kind of person that you are here. But I loved some of your responses here. And so we'll just open with the very first one. And that is, I really love this one. Who is your hero?
So my hero would be my grandfather. Nothing to do with medicine or nursing or anything like that. He's just one of the best humans that I know. The story goes that his mother, Flossie. Okay, now we're talking about
Flossie.
His mother, Flossie, could not have children, and there was a family down the street that had more children than they could really take care of, and so her Flossie's husband, who I never met, went down to this family and said, basically, can I have one of your children? And that was my grandfather.
What?
And coming from that, just strange kind of start, if you will.
Yeah.
Was just an amazing family man, just an amazing human being. He was funny. He was just kind. He was always up for a good time. So he's my hero.
Oh my goodness. It sounds like you got to know him very well, you know what I mean? Or at least well enough. And so let me back up. Did he live where you grew up, or did you have to travel to see him?
He lived in the same, well, like an unincorporated area next to the town that I lived in. So I lived
Okay.
in town and he lived on a farm, essentially. Not a huge farm, but, had some land, had some cows, had a huge garden. And every Friday night, my grandmother worked at a peace plant. And not piece like this, but a
Yeah.
piece plant where they actually sewed pieces together, like they sewed a garment factory essentially. And on
Oh.
Fridays, as she got off work about 3:30, 4 o'clock, I would be home from school and she would drop by, pick me up, and then on Sundays she would bring me back because they lived with well water, and so they didn't have enough to actually wash their clothes. So she would come into the laundromat. I would help her do the laundry for the week, and then she would drop me off at home. So every weekend for pretty much most of my life, until I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
I would spend with them. So yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who would go, okay, I know where we're going with this, because a lot of people are like, well, I became a nurse because of so and so and this and that and whatever the case may be. But your story is a little bit different, if I'm not mistaken, Kim. Let's go ahead and start off with that all-encompassing question. Why nursing for you? How did you get into nursing?
Well, that's where the accident comes in. I was going to be a political science major. Why? I have no idea. I thought that I wanted to be, I really wanted to be a lobbyist. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that was in my vocabulary, on my agenda ever in my life, because I'm the least political person now. I don't watch news. I don't have a TV. None of that. I'm so anti lobbying now. But
Yeah.
I was the line to sign up for college in the political science major was really long. Why? I have no idea, but it was really long, and I was not really the best and most inspired student at that point. I was a great student in high school, and I don't know what happened between high school and college, but I was just kind of just sort of not putting in a whole lot of effort. And I saw this line next to the political science line where people were signing up. And
Yeah.
I just got in that line, and that happened to be the line for nursing school.
When I read that, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of people just amazing inspirational stories. I'm not one of those, you know what I mean? I wasn't a first career nurse myself, but it's one of those things where I go, you became a nurse by accident. And yet later on you go to say, not by accident. So continue to expound on this wonderful story.
So, and when I first got into nursing school, like I said, I wasn't an inspired student. I was kind of all over the place. I was disorganized. I was really kind of phoning it in, I guess, because I was smart enough that I could do the work and understand the stuff. Like, I've always been a science person and I like the body. So it just, what I was learning made sense to me, that I just didn't
Mm.
put in a whole lot of effort the first time that I went to school. And I told you I got another degree and I was a much better student. And, it just, not only did my degrees go on, but so did my effort and my return and, what I learned and that sort of thing also amplify each time I went back to school. So I was a much better student, each time I went.
That's just incredible. And I love that. It's interesting to me because I can already hear people going, oh my gosh, so you just kind of, flubbed your way through nursing school, which for some people are like, I'm barely making it. You know what I mean? Like that, keeping that head above water and just trying to work the hardest. But it sounds to me like you come from that populace where I'd say I'd probably put myself in going through nursing school, where you're more that book smart, whether or not you were disciplined, that's the piece that I'm hearing, that maybe, you know what I mean? But the book smart of it, you were able to kind of rely on that to just kind of fall back on. And then it took the other portion of that some bit to maybe formulate, right? Like the clinical side of things and practice. Would that be kind of an accurate description?
Yes, yes. I really, going to clinicals and the expectations of you sort of being kind of organized and, methodical and, all that sort of thing. I'm a Gemini. So I have two parts of my personality and they are polar opposites, and I embrace both. And so I just sort of feel like when I first went into nursing school and the way that I got in and the way that I went through that first associate's degree was my messy, sort of dark-haired twin. And then, my other twin sort of came out as we went along. But, looking back, I realized that none of that was by accident. And, we don't always recognize that things are happening for us instead of to us. Things are always happening for us, for our most good. And when I look back now and I just think about, like, when someone asks me the question about, why did you become a nurse? And I'm like, I don't know, like, totally by accident. I really do have to stop and think about that, about how much divine design was in that, and truly things happening for me. And now that I look back, I can't imagine doing anything but this.
Yeah.
This is truly where I needed to end up, and truly where I would have ended up. If it hadn't happened exactly that way, it would have been, it would have happened another way. But so it wasn't by accident. I say it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and in the time you're thinking, I just look at, like, if there's any more literal picture of these choices we have in life. You are literally in one line, and you literally stepped out of that line for reasons unbeknownst to you at the time to get into another line, and literally you're looking at, like, where your life would have gone. Who knows where your life would have been if you had stayed in the first line and you went down this. Obviously, you and I are not having this conversation if that happens. So I love that aspect of life that you go, there's that whole destiny versus free will and all of that business. And I still genuinely believe in free will, in the fact that we do get to choose. So dialing back to my children's pastor days and things of that nature, like, well, no, God has a plan for you, and this is your plan, and that's it. And it's like, well, yes and no. What I understand to be true is that he doesn't override free will. Therefore, we have free will to choose what we want to do, but he definitely knows where we're going and what we're doing. You know what I mean? He knew the 56-year-old Kim. He knows the 49-year-old Eric. He knows from way before we were born. And so that has always, like, if you just take time and contemplate that for a bit, you can go down some pretty long roads in that regards. But I just love that aspect of the combination of free will, and while also this idea of destiny and predetermination. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he allows us to choose, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't stalk us down until we choose correctly. So if it didn't happen then, it might have happened later, like, who knows?
True. I love that. Well, speaking of that, so, I feel like we've just skipped over this giant piece of your life. But we're talking nursing school, and I love that you also want to talk about, one of your favorite topics being nursing as an ever-changing field. But let's address that in the practical sense, talking about your ever-changing career path. We all have this idea of, okay, well, when you're in nursing school, I'm going to do this, and I'm so excited for me, peds oncology, night shift. That was going to be my career, period. It put an exclamation point at the end of it. And then yet, here I am, a version of myself I never envisioned. So take us down that road, would you, Kim? Like, where did you start, and what have you done along the way?
Okay, so, kind of like going through nursing school, I just, didn't have that discipline, didn't have that laser focus. And when we ended up graduating, I kind of have a funny story. Back 35 years ago when I took boards, it was a 2-day affair, and it was proctored. And I don't know where those proctors found their shoes, but they didn't have taps on them, but it was like these heavy, almost like work boots, and they walked the room. So you're in this room with 300 other people. They only give the test a couple times a year. So if you miss that test and you mess up, or they think you're cheating and you get kicked out, you have to wait a long time before you can take the test again.
Oh.
So the proctors are walking around, and what they said, they really scared us. And they said, if we see your eyes looking anywhere else but on your paper, and it was pen, it was written, it was like fill in the dot, those standardized tests. It was like that. And if we even think that you're cheating, we're gonna take your test, and you are done. You're out of there. So I mean, everybody was freaking out. Well, there was a girl that had a grand mal seizure during the test. I'm sure it was stress. She had a grand mal seizure. She is incontinent. She falls out of her chair. She's on the ground. Not one nursing student moved.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the proctors were right there, but no one moved. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is just very telling about, sort of how you feel at the end of nursing school. You're like, I ain't messing this up for nothing. This was this was a lot of work. But so I got my associate's degree, and I sort of didn't have a lot of direction. I wasn't sure what I wanted. Nothing was drawing me like I have to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of that. I went into psych nursing, and I worked on an adult ward that had it was a locked ward, and we got all kinds of people. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I decided that I was going to work in neonatal intensive care unit. I interviewed for that position. I was moving 500 miles away. I interviewed for the position over the phone, and I rented an apartment sight unseen. So myself and my roommate just moved to North Carolina, and that's how I got here. And I started doing neonatal intensive care. And then I transitioned from neonatal intensive care to adult intensive care, and just sort of kept, I've really always worked in the emergency room, the intensive care unit. I've never done med surg. I've never done, I've done pediatric ICU, but I've never, neonatal intensive care again, but I've never really worked the floor. Like I've never done, I did dialysis for a very short period of time. But yeah, so I've always done those. It just seems like really intense kind of things.
Yeah.
And then I went back to school. By that time I lived in Hawaii. I went back to school, and I got my baccalaureate degree, and I went through the University of Phoenix because I was still a practice, I was still working.
Yeah.
And so that was the sort of the best way, to do that. And I have another funny story. So you can edit these out if you need to, but certainly this is a funny story.
Heck no. We are keeping the funny stories in, sister. That's how this is working.
So the classes that I took were in a high rise, like a 30-story high rise in, I don't know if it maybe 15 stories, because I think they have a limitation in downtown Honolulu. So downtown Honolulu. And classes started like 5 o'clock, and we would go until 8 a couple days a week. So it was pretty intense. Like you're really there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know anything about University of Phoenix, but a lot of stuff that you do is like group stuff, and you learn with a group, and you do like group projects for most of what you do. And so there was an opportunity that whatever we were learning, I had to stand up and do a presentation at the front of the room. Well, how it was is that everybody was facing this way, facing me, obviously, away from the windows in the back that looked out over Waikiki Bay.
Yeah.
And so I'm giving my presentation, and there is like crazy stuff happening out there in Waikiki Bay. So they have this boat that blows up, catches on fire. I'm not kidding. Catches on fire, and then there's a helicopter rescue coming to get whoever was in the water or whoever was what. And I'm giving this presentation. I'm like, oh, like right in the middle of my presentation. And so when I came back into the room the next week, it was actually all the chairs were turned to the side, so nobody. No, and I was like, okay, all right, so.
Let me just. Yeah. I'm gonna pause you here at this moment, because I'm like, your ability to stay focused amidst whatever challenges show their way, like, it just blowing my mind. You're talking about the NCLEX, the boards, and someone's having a grand mal seizure, and you're like, all right. I just envision y'all going like, okay, we're praying for this wonderful human being, but I am looking directly at my test. I'm not even watching what's going on over there. And then you've got this presentation you're giving. Yeah, and then you're giving this presentation. You're like, I'm just gonna keep going. We're like, there's no way I can stay focused.
It was so crazy. It was so
Oh
crazy.
my good. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. Kudos to you. Way to stay focused. Oh my goodness.
And then I went back. At that point, I'd sort of started to hit my stride a little bit in nursing and recognized that, yes, this is exactly what I was meant to do. And so I went to Vanderbilt University and I got a master's degree as an acute care nurse practitioner. That was a wonderful experience, just an amazing experience. But I did that whole master's program in 1 year. So I had to go to the dean. So you could see the transition from somebody that had no clue what they were going to do, uninspired,
Hmm.
to now going to the dean of the nursing school to say, I have to get this done in a year. I have to take 21 hours. I have to do, so they allowed me to take more hours, as long as my grades stayed up and that sort of thing. And I
Wow.
did. I got my master's in 1 year. Um, and then I was a nurse practitioner for about 11 or 12 years. And I did a couple of cool things when I did that. So I worked for a cardiothoracic surgeon. Um, and, I sort of feel like cardiothoracic medicine is really kind of cookie cutter. It really is. You think it's not, but it's really cookie cutter. Like you do the same things the same way. You give the same medications. You do, like everything
Right.
is just very routine. And I did not like that. I just did not like that at all. Plus, I really didn't mesh with the person that I worked with. Anyway, that's a
Mm.
whole nother podcast. But I was split between, because I was the first nurse practitioner hired in this group. And actually, that's not true. I was the second. Um, and they weren't quite sure how they were going to use me, but I also worked for a gentleman surgeon whose specialty was breast cancer.
Oh.
And we did general surgery. We did a lot of general surgery, but his sort of claim to fame was breast cancer. And I actually got certified. Well, you don't get certified. I got trained and I got authorized by the insurance companies to do something called stereotactic breast biopsies, which uses it's like military ideas and training where you do triangulation and sort of azimuth
Okay.
of fire and that sort of thing for the artillery. It's the
Hmm.
same thing when you do these ultrasound guided or mammogram guided biopsies, because you have to know how far up and down, how far left and right, how far in. You really have to get a 3D model of the breast by just looking in two planes. So anyway, I was the first nurse practitioner in North Carolina to do that. And, the insurance companies didn't quite know what to do with me, so they didn't pay me for them. They basically said, you're not smart enough to know how to do this. And I loved it because there were some, like I said, the doctor that I worked for, a gentleman surgeon,
Hmm.
um, was very good at those. But he allowed me to go and do that on my own as long as my results were good. And so there were a couple of other surgeons in the group that weren't great at those, and they would miss the lesion, and so they would come back and they would get referred to the doctor. And if I would see them, I would get those lesions a lot of times. So it was really, and I love that. I just, taking the people that come in, they're scared to death about this
Yeah.
potential diagnosis, and you give them, you do whatever, the surgery, you give them this diagnosis, and then you watch them, you sort of carry them through the whole, they blossom. They blossom. They
Yeah.
figure out that they're stronger than they ever thought that they were, that, they have more faith in their family, their relationships are more important, all of that kind of stuff. And then on the other end, they are a cancer survivor and they're just a totally changed person in good ways, like in
Yeah.
really good ways. And then I did that for about 12 years, and the gentleman surgeon that I was working with decided that he was going to retire. And I just couldn't, I had so much autonomy and I was so respected. I was viewed as a peer. And um, I just thought, I don't know that I can be pigeonholed and sort of just be a helper,
Yeah.
because I really did have a fairly independent practice. So I went into anesthesia. I went back to school again. I got a postgraduate certificate in anesthesia, and I still do anesthesia now. So
And how long have you been doing that last aspect?
Since 2007. So what is
Oh,
that?
okay. Yeah.
Here?
So,
Yeah.
18 years. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I just love the varied, like, you started not knowing where, and any nursing students, obviously, nurses, my goodness, you've got your own stories and we want to hear them here. But, little plug, but, you've got your stories. Nursing students who have yet to write your story. Like, for those students that are like, I have no idea. I have students here. I'm like, well, where are you leaning? What do you want to do? And I've got zero clue, Eric. Great. That's okay because you're not the
Great.
first one to have zero clue. And there's so many things you can do. So Kim, if you want to speak towards, actually, I have two questions. Let's do both these questions, and that should round out this very first episode. But the first question is, I'm dialing it back again. You come out of nursing school, you're an associate's prepared nurse, you're ready to hit the floor, and you go into psych. Not a lot of students I know that I've had the pleasure of speaking with start there. So what was that like as a new grad? And stories from that time, just kind of give us a glimpse into that window of it being the fresh grad into a rather interesting specialty, for lack of terms.
Again, uninspired Kim. It was they needed nurses, and I knew I sort of had an in, and I knew that I was going to get the job. I didn't really have to apply myself a whole lot, and that's why I went into psych. And I was like, okay, I accidentally went to nursing school. I got through nursing school without a whole lot of problems. And
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm going to get there and I'm going to go to do something and I'm not going to know what I'm doing. So I was a little intimidated by that. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? I was like,
yeah.
this should have been harder. That's what I kind of kept telling myself. This should have been harder. I missed something. So I could sort of ease my way into nursing by going into psych because there's not a lot of nursing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking. There's a lot,
Hmm.
you have to really understand. And these were sick people, mentally ill, yes, but also sick physically because it was a locked psych ward. And if you've ever thought about psych nursing, I mean, these people are on big time medications and it
Hmm.
really affects every part of their body. It affects their health. It might start out as a mental illness, but it really becomes a systemic, health issue. But so it just wasn't heavy in putting in catheters and all that kind of stuff that I was a little intimidated by.
Yeah.
So I went into that, and I actually I loved it. I loved it.
Mm.
I have so many stories. There's some really interesting people that I met while I was there. I'll tell you another funny story. This is
Yeah.
so crazy.
Yeah.
This person was a hoarder. Okay, so this person was a nurse. She was a
Oh.
nurse. She was a maternity nurse, and she thought that she was pregnant. Now, she looked pregnant. She didn't look obese. She looked pregnant, but she was like
Okay.
60 some years old. So she had this, her mental illness was that she thought that she was pregnant. They
Yeah.
did pregnancy tests on her that were negative. How many pregnancy tests has she done in her career that she came out negative? The person was actually pregnant. So you couldn't convince her. You couldn't use any logic for her. So they were trying to get her medications correct, and she was really kind of a little bit unsettled. She was doing some dangerous activity. She needed the milieu, if I can use my favorite psych word, milieu. She needed the milieu of a locked unit, but she was a hoarder. And so we were noticing, and what you do with hoarders, or at least back then, the idea was that you don't challenge them on that you just sort of go in and you weed out when the hoarding gets to be a certain volume. You just sort of go in and weed out. Well, what we were noticing is that at dinner time they got white napkins, and she was saving those. She wasn't using those. And at lunchtime you would get brown napkins, like paper napkins, and so she was saving those. And we weren't quite sure what she was doing. She spent a lot of time in her room, but when we went to like weed out her hoard, or
Yeah.
take some of her hoard away, what we found is the most intricate nest made out of that brown paper towel rolled into these things that look like twigs, and it was woven with it looked like a bird made it. It looked like a bird's nest. And then the white was fashioned into an egg. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, I'm done. Maybe she,
Oh
like,
my
yeah,
goodness. I'd like to, without minimizing the incredibleness of that story, like I tell my students all the time, I'm like, you get into nursing and you'll be able to, at the end of your career, however long that is, be able to say sentences you never thought you'd be able to say before. I've given IV arsenic to a patient. I've transfused white blood cells. You have witnessed a patient build a nest, an intricate woven nest out of napkins. Those are things that I think when, not focused Kim got into the other line and started nursing, you don't anticipate these things. And yet
no.
here we are.
And yeah, and I just think that nurses, really do understand the human condition because we've just seen so much of it.
Yeah.
We've seen so much of it. Like all the things that I've seen, all the things that you've seen, all the things that nurses have seen in general. Like, and the thing is that when you come back, like I can tell you this story and you appreciate it and your listeners will appreciate it. But I tell that story to someone who isn't in the medical field and they're like, what? Like they don't get it. They don't
Egg
get
nest, okay.
how
Yeah.
just amazing, incredible the mind is to protect this person.
Yes, yes. Oh, very well said. And so, I mean, that's the specificality of your nursing journey. What do you want to say from a general standpoint to the listening audience as far as your passionate topic about nursing being an ever-changing field? And we'll wrap your first episode up with this before we jump into part 2.
I think that nursing is as unique and varied as medicine is in general. If there is something that attracts you or something that you feel passionate about or feels like a calling to you, that if you just keep an open mind and an open heart and open eyes and ears, you will find your perfect job. And so I would encourage you to keep looking until you do find your perfect job. What I hate to see is that there are nurses who are in doing stuff that they don't love.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who need you to love what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so there's as many jobs as there are people. You can find that unique position that just speaks to you. And, like I said, psych to neonatal intensive care, to adult intensive care, to the emergency room, that was my journey. And I finally found, what I loved. Once I was a nurse practitioner and I was going into the operating room, I loved that. So it was a great transition for me to go into anesthesia, right? Because I was in the area that I loved. But there's so many opportunities out there. And, the way that nursing is changing now, that if there's not an opportunity out there that speaks to you, make one.
Yes.
Suggest one.
Yes. And so 2 thoughts on this to piggyback. The perfect job. You talk about the search for the perfect job. And I feel like a lot of nursing students today too is like, I want to start off in the perfect job. And you may not, like you're saying. But also, I feel like the perfect job may change. Yes? Like you can be in the perfect job. And then that perfect job doesn't become the perfect job anymore. Where you're like you said, there's some nurses who are not passionate for the area they're in. Maybe they held a passion for that first, some years ago or time ago. Maybe they never did and they just settled, quote unquote, settled. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Again, anywhere you end up as a nurse, my gosh, you're taking care of people. You have people's lives in your hands. You are doing the thing. So don't, diminish yourself there. But if you are listening and going, gosh, what Kim is saying is like really speaking out to me, like I'm not in my perfect job. It doesn't matter how old you are. That's the other piece I can speak towards here. You can, for me, I've said it before. I was like, can I teach this old dog new tricks? When I realized, oh my gosh, I need to make a change. And it turns out you can. And it's terrifying and it's exhilarating all at the same time. And if I had stayed pigeonholed, and that's a weird thing to say when I entered a career that I thought I would do for the rest of my career, you know what I mean? I didn't stay, quote unquote, pigeonholed, and we know those nurses that do, the ones that are, you get comfortable, you have not all the answers, but a majority of the answers. You can help people. You're the one people come to for advice, and you feel good in that regards, and that you are comfortable in those regards. But then you're like, this all the other aspect of that, whether it's burnout or, you know what I mean, you're just no longer passionate for something. It becomes a place. And the second thought, as I'm just rambling on here, but the second thought of what I love about what you say there, Kim, is A, find your perfect job, because B, if you're in an area that is not quote unquote your perfect job, or you're definitely, you're not passionate about, you're holding a spot for someone who is passionate about that particular field or job. And so it's ideal if you move on to find. Me leaving peds oncology opened the doors to somebody else who had fresh passion, ready to go, and that otherwise I was maybe in a sense physically blocking from getting that opportunity in our area. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. And so, and you're not doing your best work if you're not matched with where you are. Like, you're not giving the best care. You're not taking the time. You're not going the extra mile, which nurses are known for. You're not. And there's no shame in that. There's zero shame in that, as a matter of fact, because you're a person as well. And maybe you have children, or maybe your children have left the home, or maybe you have an elderly parent that you have to take care of. Maybe your relationships at home have changed, or maybe the requirements for you, maybe your health has changed. There's no shame in that, in matching your energy, your needs, your circumstances with wherever you're working, because you spend a lot of time at work, and it really needs to be someplace that you don't absolutely hate, because that will show up in your own health.
In your own health, and in how you treat others, whether they're just your peers, or also that will bleed into your practice, and your patients will notice. And to me, that's the cardinal sin. Like, that's where I was like, okay, I see myself going down this road, and I will not become that person. Ergo, I need to make a change. So, speaking of passionate things, you guys do not miss part 2 of the Kimberly Wiest experience. We're going to jump right onto the flip side of the side B of our wonderful honored guest, because she's going to open up all the things that she is currently passionate about, and it's going to be a marvelous discussion. So do not miss it. Let's catch you on the flip side. Here's what's happening on the next episode of Feeding Our Young.
Don't forget that, the person sitting in front of you is someone's mom, or someone's daughter, or someone's sister, or someone's spouse. And they have this whole life that they bring with them, all these experiences, all these skills. Like, you don't know what they know. You don't know. You're seeing them in the most vulnerable spot in their life, potentially. And they might not be on their best behavior, but you really have to kind of consider that whole soul that is in front of you.
Did you like today's episode of Feeding Our Young? Want to know more about the Feeding Our Young movement? Check out our website at feedingouryoung.org. Would you like to be featured on a future episode? Maybe have Eric bring his unique brand of encouragement to your nursing students or nurses? Please text us at 509-666-5636 or email us at info@feedingouryoung.org. We're so excited to have you return to hear our next honored guest. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Feeding Our Young LLC. Again, that's username Feeding Our Young LLC. Until next time, be encouraged and go find someone to encourage today.